And we're back for game number 2 of this best of 5, our best of 5 grand finals, an all North American affair featuring Dignitas taking on Team Liquid. The second time these teams have met the day the first time around was in the winners bracket finals. Dignitas hung it ugly on Team Liquid, going 2-0 and advancing themselves to the grand finals. Team Liquid battling their way back out of the doldrums, out of the lower bracket, and up back into competition. They started the series down a game because they did come from the lower bracket, but getting a Game 1 win under their belt means we're totally tied up and even, Draskell, and it's basically a best of 3. Can't wait to see what Game 3 has in store.
I'm happy that Team Liquid came out strong. It's very easy to play like a winner bracket, or excuse me, a loser bracket game, and then get knocked down. Or, wait, no, I was right the first time. Winner bracket, get knocked down, and then come back, and then you're facing the team that basically put you there in the first place. So it's a really, really scary situation to come back into that. You might be not feeling as confident, but Liquid, they managed to put away Game 1 pretty convincingly, I must say. And we talked about their lineup. It wasn't necessarily a all-in lineup. It was more like a completely balanced, we have everything we could possibly need style of lineup. And those lineups are good, except Dignitas had a team where it's like, okay, well, you can definitely see it's massive team fights. So sometimes one really good team fight can just trump the game, and then you get a free Roshan or your Dignitas, and you just play really, really well. But it was all Liquid all the time, even through the laning phase. I mean, Korok killed sneaking solo as a Puck versus a Beastmaster. That is very, very strange to see. And then they kind of just got the picks where they needed them. They knew exactly when to get the fights, and they got 2 Roshans in a row. Very, very difficult to come back from that.
And I think you really hit the nail on the head, and we talked at length about it, is when you pick a lineup like Liquid had in Game 1, like you said, it's a jack-of-all-trades lineup. It's really good. It's good at a lot of things, but it's not really good at anything. And that's really what they had. And we talk all the time about ease of execution and what have you. Lineups like that tend to not be the easiest to execute. It tends to take a lot of strong individual performances as well as good team cohesion to make a lineup like that pay off for you. Whereas Dignitas had a lineup that I felt was a much easier lineup to execute. They had Luna in the carry. They had very strong team fight, as you had mentioned. But they never really got any use of it. And for the second time in a row, we saw Way2 get up a very quick BKB, and then it just didn't matter. He just never was there to hit a black hole. He was out of position a lot. And again, I'm not trying to lay it on him. It was a collective effort that ended up with Dignitas on the losing end of things in game number 1. But, you know, Liquid, if they can continue to draft that kind of a lineup and continue to execute at the high level they did in Game 1, they're going to be a tough force to stop, even though Dignitas certainly put them in their place in the winners bracket finals. So you've got 2 teams that are really good at what they do. It's just going to be a matter of who peaks at the right time and how much momentum they can carry on from game to game. So Dignitas has banned out the Wisp and the Nyx Assassin, Darkseer, and Nature's Prophet out courtesy of Team Liquid. Very strong pickup in the Bad Rider, but Dignitas gets the Gyro and the Lone Druid in exchange for it.
2 really stable heroes, especially, like Gyrocopter, Lone Druid. Doesn't get much more stability than that. So Bat Rider is the hero that Team Liquid obviously going to be using for initiation. Not surprised at all to see a Lifestealer picked here. And we actually got a chance to see a Lifestealer versus Lone Druid one-on-one matchup. And even when TC was basically playing in a 2 versus 1 with an Enigma in his jungle and laning against a Lone Druid, he still did great. So I don't think TC is going to be worrying too much at all if that ends up being the case 2 times in one day. He did very, very well in it. All you really have to do is hit the bear, save your rage for whenever you get entangled and open wounds, and you pretty much just heal back to full. So Liquid going to pick a Storm too. So he actually has 2 heroes that he absolutely loves to play with because both of them have very good mobility. Bat Rider, of course, because of the blink, and then you have Storm because of Ball Lightning. And that's like all the initiation power you possibly need to get into range of that Gyrocopter and just disintegrate him before he can do his massive combo damage with his Rocket Barrage, his Flat Cannon, and his Call Down.
I'll tell you what, I am in love with this opening draft of Liquid. It's not, I mean, it's 3 strong heroes in and of itself, but the way that they're going to work against it, no matter what Dignitas picks up here, I mean, obviously they could surprise us, but Gyrocopter and Lone Druid, those are core heroes. Those are heroes you build your entire composition around. You put together a game plan. Maybe it's going to be a support Gyro. Usually you don't see that, though. Lone Druid is a hero who really benefits from having another carry on the map because he's going to find his farm regardless. He's going to be scary, but he does need some time and he needs a safety belt. Now, picking up the Magnus, that's great from Dignitas. Magnus makes everyone better. It gives them even more team fight potential at level 6 with Gyrocopter's mass combination, as you had mentioned. When I look at Liquid's lineup, they have 3 heroes that all excel at beating Gyrocopter and Lone Druid at every stage of the game. The Lifestealer can infest, as you had mentioned, into either of those heroes. But being able to focus down a lone druid and get through the bear, that's something that in the past when I've casted with Puppy, for example, in the G1, he talks a lot about that, and I've really begun to look at it in a different way. When you look at a lone druid, it's not always about thinking about what the bear can do just in a general fight. Sometimes you have to focus on, okay, what's behind the bear that we need to bring down? A gyrocopter with 1,000 rage on his flat cannon being a perfect example. Now they have a Bat Rider and a Storm Spirit who can get past the bear. They can get past that big, tanky damage dealer, focus down the gyro and the lone druid. It makes BKB even more essential than ever on gyro, and I just really like what they've shown us so far.
It also leaves a lot of room for aggressive play, which you and I, of course, and I'm sure a lot of the people watching these finals are all really, really big fans of. And even against Magnus, how nice is it to have a Storm or a Bat Rider who can just jump on him, force him to RP in a less than ideal situation, or maybe even just kill him flat out before he's even able to react, because Vortex, perhaps the Light Stealer wants to get something like an Orchid at some stage. We've seen it before. Blow Your Brain actually did it the other day. So the options for Team Liquid are pretty wide open at the moment in terms of what their style wants to be. But typically when you see Bat and you see Storm, you think that Liquid are going to be trying to apply some pressure. Now, there's an important thing to remember here is neither team actually has any supports pretty much at all.
Right.
But all three heroes that we see on either team are pretty much going to be getting some decent amount of farms. So now it's going to be down to what Dignitas can get their hands on, because right now their initiator is basically Mag. And their counter initiator is basically Mag, and they don't have any supports to show what kind of style they're going to be playing just yet.
Right. I'm really stunned that Liquid let Shadow Demon go by. They banned the Enigma out, and I'm a little stunned by that. I mean, Way2 is a fantastic player, and he's just struggled on that hero. If they want to pick it and give it to him again, I think I'd be okay with that. I don't think I would mind at this stage. And but letting the Shadow Demon go by is just a little baffling to me. Shadow Demon is a hero who excels at all stages in dealing with the Lifestealer. Obviously, he can't rage, or he can't disrupt through rage, but being able to demonic purge him, to slow him down, even if he goes with a big mobility-based sort of a build, it just negates that, and they let him go through. So they may, I mean, maybe they just plan to pick him, and that's why, nope, they're going to go with a Rubik. So Rubik makes a pretty good amount of sense, at least in terms of what he offers you with the combination they already have. We have the makings of what could also very easily be an offensive tri-lane. I mean, obviously the Bat could run a solo lane anywhere he wants, but with a Rubik and a Lifestealer, they could basically stick to Storm Spirit in the solo safe lane, let him farm there against what they may anticipate is a lone druid, and then go ahead and run the Rubik, a Lifestealer +1 in the offensive tri-lane with the Bat Rider trying to dominate the Magnus in mid.
It's hard to make the decision right now, though, because we haven't seen what Dignitas are actually going to be fielding as their supports. And Rubik, he is a defensive support by nature. He doesn't really do a whole lot of damage on his own. He adds a lot of control, and he takes away some of the damage output via Fade Bolt that Dignitas could do in that tri-lane. But typically when you see aggression, you see something like a Shadow Demon and a Lina partner with a Lifestealer. The high burst damage that you need to just isolate a hero and kill it before you end up taking too much damage yourselves and end up trading. Because ideally, the Lifestealer aggressive tri-lane would just win the lane very, very hard. But since Dignitas have only shown one card of their potential tri-lane, it's really difficult to make that choice just on the fly. And because Bat Rider is a hero who could potentially offlane versus a Gyrocopter tri-lane, or could jungle too, they still left themselves some flexibility. Right. And of course, having a Rubik against a hero like Mag is great because you can potentially make the Mag have to RP you just to prevent his abilities from getting stolen. So Dignitas now, because of the fact that Liquid take the Rubik away, are going to get Shadow Demon themselves. Great choice. It makes the Storm have to basically go on you, or the Bat Rider have to go on you, because otherwise the hero just gets disrupted, and then things start to take a turn for the worse. So both teams really, really thinking out this draft so far.
I'm still a little stunned that they let Shadow Demon go. I mean, like you said, you basically just covered all the bases, and then Demonic Purge, which I talked about previously, and the way that works on Lifestealer. I mean, that's just a great hero that counters a lot of what Liquid wants to do, that they give away basically for free. And if they, and again, I mean, Shadow Shaman, Enigma, great heroes. I just would not worry nearly as much about those two as I would a Shadow Demon. Still waiting on that fit to come out from Liquid. If you're just tuning in and just joining us, this is game number 2 of our best of 5 finals. We're all knotted up. The reason it works the way it does is because Dignitas started out with a 1-game lead, because they came out of our winner's bracket with Liquid battling their way back out of the lower bracket. Enchantress, I would say at this point that's a Fluff signature pick. You just don't see too many people run Enchantress. Fluff loves the hero, though.
I think he loves the hero against tanky lineups, against
Yeah.
heroes like Magnus, against Lone Druid, Gyro especially. I mean, all heroes on the team of Dignitas outside of the Shadow Demon have pretty hefty strength gain, and you at least build them somewhat tanky. So having impetus to eat through that Lone Druid's mass HP to bypass the armor, that's going to be great. Same thing can be said for the Mag and the Gyrocopter. It gives you an additional damage dealer as opposed to going for something like a Chen that is more of a pusher, teamfight utility hero, and can help save people. So Dignitas, their last pick is actually going to be a Lion that gives them a ton of control, very needed against a hero like Storm. Be able to punish heroes like Bat and Storm for initiating on you. I think both teams have pretty solid lineups, but for Liquid, a lot of the emphasis for them is going to be how much they can actually push the pace. Typically, like 4 months ago, we would see an Enchantress and think to ourselves, aggressive tri-lane. But that's still very, very risky here for Liquid to do. I'm thinking they're probably still going to run it in the defensive position. They could put their Batrider in the jungle too if they want to. Enchantress really only needs 2 or 3 camps. And we've seen Dignitas double jungle actually twice in the last 2 days, and it's worked out pretty well. But we will find out what the lanes are going to be looking like soon.
Run through our lineups as the players get set and into their positions. Will be 2 defensive tri-lanes, it would see. And we've got actually Sneaking making his way up to top right now. Wow, way too lagging behind. They'll end up putting that mag mid. No doubt about it. And Owie making his way to the off lane. So, starting with Liquid, TC going to be back on the Lifestealer. He's already shown us one fantastic Lifestealer game that they actually ended up losing to Dignitas. Again, one of the better matches I've ever had the chance to broadcast, and one that you'd need to check out on the VODs, absolutely no doubt about it. We'll have Korok playing on our Storm Spirit. We're going to have Fluff, as anticipated, playing on the Enchantress. Batrider going to be handled by Bulba, believe it or not. And I mean, Bulba Bat, I want to say I've seen it before, but I could be totally wrong here. Maybe I'm just so used to seeing Bulba on a very small set of heroes, and Batrider makes it into the pool so rarely through the ban phase. But, you know, I just haven't seen Bulba Bat either in a long time or at all. And IX Mike going to be playing on the Rubik. On the other side, we got Way Too Sexy playing on our Shadow Demon Lion, handled by Fogged. As mentioned, Owie, going to be on our Lone Druid. In the offlane Universe, going to be playing our Gyrocopter with Mag, played by Sneaking, setting up shop here in mid.
I don't think I've seen Bulba Bat too often myself. I'm thinking about it now, and most of the time you see him on Clockwork, maybe a Darkseer here and there, and then you see him on Prophet. Those are pretty much the heroes that I think he plays the most out of everything. So, not to say that he can't play the hero.
Right.
Batrider is actually relatively straightforward. The biggest thing that you have to remember when playing Batrider is finding the openings, looking at what heroes you have to go for, and being able to isolate them. That is the strength of a Batrider player, and I think that Bulba, being so experienced at playing Clockwork especially, and Itch's Prophet, your map awareness has to be great for both of those heroes too, so I'd imagine his Batrider is going to be pretty nice to watch too.
I'm really surprised. There we go. There's one more telekinesis. Okay, I was going to say, if that bear gets away, I'm surprised TC didn't use open wounds on it. But anyway, able to pull the creep wave and still... he was able to pull the creep wave, but unfortunately Owie unable to get him back under his own tower, so trying to block it as best as he can. Now, this could be very difficult for Owie. When you look at the lineup that Liquid has, not just here in the tri-lane, but in other positions, this is a lineup that can dive him very, very easily. You can want to talk about the danger of being enchanted, open wounds, with a telekinesis, and the ability for Lifestealer to just say, hey, I've got open wounds, I don't need to worry about tower damage, I'll just heal through it. So he's going to have to be very, very careful, and I'll be really surprised if he has any kind of a decent start at all. Bulba going to be jungling up our Bat, going to be rushing himself out of set of Tranquil Boots. And Bat's one of those weird junglers, and there's a few in the game like this that starts out really slow, like unbelievably slow. He almost having to go back to the well a lot, and so on and so forth. And yeah, we can actually see they are going to even with this Satyr take a shot at trying to get a tower. And yeah, the bear now engaged on by TC. There's the open wounds we were talking about.
It's just so hard for him to stay in this lane at all. This bear is probably actually going to die. Gets shockwaved by the Satyr. Yep, another bear. Fluff gets 100 gold. Bear is on cooldown right now for 155 seconds. That is a very long time, and Owie can't do anything about this. I'm shocked that he actually hasn't just gone to his jungle, because after seeing the lane, not only is his jungle not being utilized at all, but he's not deterring them from this. Like,
no, he can't.
His presence here is not like making Liquid scared. So Way2, though, is going to be able to come down here. I'm not even sure if this rotation is going to be able to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the strength of this particular combination. Telekinesis means they don't have to get on you to be able to grab you. So Owie, basically, this is about as close as he can get without feeling really... Yeah, now look at Mike. He's just going to run right past the tower. And if he comes anywhere near them, he would be grabbed, he would be open wounds, I guess is the way to say that, and Fluff be able to catch him with Enchanted. This is just really beautifully anticipated and lane down to Liquid. And what I was going to say about Bulba on the Bad Rider is Bat's one of those weird heroes that his jungle was remarkably slow for a while, but then all of a sudden he finds his stride about the time he gets up a set of Tranquil Boots, and he'll just come out of the jungle at 8 minutes with Tranquil Boots and a Blink Dagger. So if you want to stop this and you don't want the Bat to be a factor, you got to get into the jungle fast. Like, you have to put pressure on him and not let him get up 1 or 2 items. You know, when I say 1 or 2, I mean like an extra salve plus Tranquil Boots is usually about all he needs.
Well, that's another reason why I was confused at Aui's decision to just stay around this bottom lane, because if you know you're going to be sacking your off lane, and your opponent is probably going to be sacking his off lane, if not only putting 1 person down there, then you know Bulba's not going to be pressured. So why just give him this free jungle for no reason? Why not have Aoi at least getting some semblance of farm himself? Otherwise, he's basically just sitting down here stacking Ancients for the Gyrocopter during the mid game, which isn't a bad use of his time, but I feel like him just jungling, maybe even having Waifu sit there and get some experience as well, would be a lot better option than just losing the tower and being just not existent in the laning phase at all.
Yep. Tell you who is existent, though, it's Universe. Bright spot for Dignitas, as much as we malign the way things are going for our poor Aoi 2000. Universe with a tier 1 already down, and just basically unfettered. Really not worried about it at all. His farm is right up there with the Lifestealer. Both are in the 25 to 30 range at 4 minutes in, so not bad at all on either side. And, you know, looking at the lineups, though, I feel like Dignitas really has to get a lead some way before 20 minutes. There's just so many tools, and we talked about it all the way through the draft. There are so many ways for Liquid to get the heroes they need on top of the heroes of Dignitas. There's so many ways to get through the bear, is the phrase I think I'm going to start to use more often. And if they aren't able to get themselves in a much better position than just a break even before 25 minutes, you know, in that kind of range, I really worry for them in the mid game.
It's going to be amplified because of the fact that Liquid had those perfect initiators. Like you said, the ways of getting past Fair and way too could be the first blood here.
And there's a disruption. And the TP is going to come in, but it doesn't matter. And here comes Gyro, maybe looking for a return kill. Universe is big. He ain't that big. He needs to be careful now. And, yeah, I'm glad he turned around. I thought he was just, like, bloodlusted with vengeance, looking for his buddy, because he had no idea where TC was going to be because he dipped out of the lane. But now the tier 2... under some pressure. TC reacting there. You understand him trying to help his buddy, but that's just lost time farming now. And in the meantime, or not TC, but Universe, that's lost time farming. And now they're able to put some more pressure on. He will make up for it now, though, with some flag cannon on the creeps.
It was an okay choice overall.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he wasn't thinking about that particularly when he teleported to that tower, but now that he's able to go down there and just stop the push basically all by himself because he's level 6 and he is a hero with a decent amount of farm at this stage, it's easier for him to farm down here than it would be for somebody, say, like Aoi, who has had a horrible start. So they're going to sub him out basically, pull him to the top lane, help him get some farm, some experience, at least get to level 5 and 6 so you can get your Entangle up and potentially get your true form so you're a little bit more tanky. And I'm on the same page, man. If Liquid keeps up this kind of a game where they're getting farm on all 3 of the heroes that need to be getting farm on, they get their initiation potential up with the Blink Dagger on the bat, they have the potential to just take over the game in like 5 to 10 minutes.
I'll tell you what I'm having nightmares of. You know, as a Dignitas fan, I'm a fan of both teams, but putting myself in Dignitas mode, what I'm having nightmares of is the idea of Korok and Bat initiating at the same time. Korok with an Orchid Malevolence, and doing this right here, grabbing the Magnus, silencing him during that, and then he's unable to skewer like he just did, unable to RP, and at the same time, the Bat goes in with the Lifestealer inside of him, and he manages to grab the Druid or the Gyro. That is what worries me, and that's not far away. They're going to be able to start doing that in like 10 minutes at most.
A lot of the emphasis here is on way 2. Especially his positioning is going to be key. If they catch a Shadow Demon and they kill him before he's able to really do anything, then there's nothing stopping Liquid's lineup from just rolling all over Dignitas, because not only is it a 4v5 pretty much straight away, but he's the only hero who can really stop a lasso or who can really stop a Storm Nake's Bomb by himself, and that's all because of the defensive utility of Disruption. So, again, supports here on Dignitas going to be pretty heavily relied upon to be in the right spot at the right time. Lion adds a lot of teamfight potential as well in terms of overall disable, being able to stop somebody from just getting in and just having free reign over maybe the Mag or the Shadow Demon, whatever they initiate on. A lot of this comes down to play and the mid-game spell placement.
7.5 minutes in, we got 1 kill on the board. The lone kill belongs to Liquid. Lone Druid finally getting himself some farm, finally making up some lost time. And we'll see what item choice he wants to go for here. I can only imagine it'll be your pretty I mean, before I would have said cookie cutter's your standard, either Radiance or, so on and so forth, Midas. But now, the most typical is really the armlet into the Maelstrom. Not guaranteed by any stretch, but very well could be. And looks like, yep, Liquid's just going to go for it. That is a very dead mag as he is lassoed back as well. And actually, the wand charges are going to allow him to skewer Bulba. He does end up dead, but Bulba might be in trouble. Here's the call down, and Liquid is all caught up there. Korok eating a lot of damage, able to ball lightning away. Way too barely makes it away. And Nature's Attendants from Fluff. That was all the difference. There's no way those 4 heroes collectively had a full health bar. I mean, you put them all together, they're not even full.
It was a really close call. I'm surprised there wasn't any more of a reaction. There's no TP on Fog right now. There's no TP on Way 2. Of course, he unfortunately didn't have the luxury of living through that fight, so I guess it's probably why he didn't have a TP. But the whole problem right now with Dignitas is that they're not really playing coordinated. Like, they're getting picked off here and there, and that's what Liquid's lineup excels at. So you would typically imagine they'd be taking more of a defensive posture, maybe not just kind of sitting mid past the river with not really a whole lot of vision, especially on the opponent's side of the map. All their wards are purely defensive, and Korok manages to pick up a double damage here. So if he gets one more hero mid, could be looking at another free kill here on the mag, deciding on what they want to do. But so far, Liquid's still looking pretty darn good.
Yeah, but you can just see, look at the posturing of all of the heroes on the side of Dignitas. I mean, and yes, obviously they're on their side of the river, which is no surprise at 9 minutes in. But they're all playing as far back under their tower as they can. Like, they are not moving in groups even. They're basically broken up in the lanes, and now Aoi going to be the target. Can they catch him? Mike could not get off the telekinesis. He was the one leading the charge there. And Fog is there to help him if he needs to. Going to be movement from Way 2, making his way to the north now. Bulba's just going to go ahead and go in and look to still this creep wave. And just heard a jump. There it is. Korok going to be engaging on Way 2. Look at the damage with that double damage. Disruption's there. Here comes Mag. He's going to spin the RP, but it doesn't matter. Korok still able to clean him up. And he almost had him up to the high ground, but now Korok able to go ahead and ball lightning in the other direction. There's a lasso on Mag, but there's a lot of help there. Fogged leads off with the impale, and he's going to be caught out with the call down. Bulba, homing missile, secures the kill, and now IX Mike in the wrong part of town. Oh, gosh. Such an I love the sound that ability makes, by the way. It is the most unbelievably unpleasant sounding spell in the entire game, and right there we saw why. Just blowing up a poor support for his entire health bars. The dust settles, make it 3-2. Dignitas on the board now.
The level of satisfaction that you get from using Finger of Death on somebody, like just seeing that zap and then the sound effect, that the health just disintegrating, there's not really many better feelings than that in Dota. I think Culling Blade on Axe is another one of those skills that you kind of get the same, like, I got him kind of feel. So, yeah. Even though Dignitas end up a little bit behind, I think they're okay with that because they use Finger Death. That's my logic.
Totally agree. And that was not a fake, like, oh my goodness. Like, that just leapt out of my mouth because you see a lion just kind of waddle himself up without boots. You just hear this awful, ear-wrenching sound in a health bar just completely evaporate. But, that's a good laugh for the day. And one of the reasons Lion needs to be played more in competitive Dota because it puts a smile on my face. Fog now undercover with Universe and sneaking as they move through, and it looks like they want to try to gank out Korok. Korok's a tough target to gank. His mana pool pretty low, and here we go. There's the Hex. The cooldown's there. He's going to have Impale to follow it up, and lands it. Not Impale, Earth Spike. Because that and Impale look so alike, I'm going to call it Impale to the end of time probably, but anyway. Mag going to rotate to the top. The glyph is used. They got a lot of personnel here if they want to go for it. There's 3 here from Dignitas. No way 2 of them can join, though. One is walking it. That's going to be Fog. Doesn't have a TP even if he wanted to use it. And Liquid not abandoning the fight quite yet. Now, Mag, I think, it does have RP. He's also 500 gold away from his blink, and Bat actually just got his blink. Now, Liquid might wait this out and get that blink dagger where it needs to be. But for right now, nothing even on the way to them. Oh, he bought it out of the side shop. That would explain why. Total brain fart. So Bulba ready and waiting to pull the trigger as soon as he spots someone out. Aoi hiding in the woods. Mag on the other side of the trees as well. And now all of Dignitas has had time to respond, and Korok slowly making his way to the north.
Well, I think we're going to get the first chance to see if the initiation potential of Liquid is good enough to take a team fight off of Dignitas, and this is actually under a tower as well. There's wards here from both teams, so I think they have a pretty good idea of where everyone is standing. So it's going to be down to the positioning of Dignitas supports, what can the Lion and what can Way 2 do to stop a lasso or to stop the Storm Nyx bomb. And I think the Liquid are actually playing this a little bit overcautious. Like sometimes when you have a lineup like this, you kind of just have to try to go. But at the same time, when you don't know where Fogged is, when you don't know where the Shadow Demon is, who by the way is only level 3, rough game so far for way 2, it's really hard to make those choices.
And they're still hanging back here. We see the Infest inside of Korok. They definitely, they're going to smoke. Okay, they're going to go for it hardcore style. And they're going to smoke all the way around. And they're going to be very fortunate that nobody was standing down there to pop that, because a lot of heroes have been spending some time just within what would have been pop range. And now Liquid just going, I'm not sure, heading towards mid. Now they're going to go ahead and loop around, just trying to catch one straggler out in the woods, I guess. But Dignitas all clumped up under their own tower, and it looks like Liquid's realized it. Universe, just there we go, gonna grab him. Mag's there, and the Mag gonna be flame broke, but they managed to bring him down immediately. Lasso gonna be on way too sexy. Mag can do nothing but stare on. Disruption buys him some time. Here comes the rest of Liquid. The Bear's there, way too, burning the death. RP gonna be spent just on IX Mike. Didn't even get Korok, and Mike gonna survive. Think that answers our question, Draskell. Is their team fight and initiation potential good enough to take a team fight from Dignitas? I say yes, sir, to the tune of 7-3, and a near full team fight. Only Drew is alive, and Owie can contribute very little in that fight.
It's unfortunate because if they had waited until Mag had Blink, they would have been able to at least get a 2-man RP there and at least save Gyrocopter for a couple more seconds. But what ended up happening is the burst damage from Liquid between the Lifestealer inside of the Storm Spirit and Storm Spirit himself. They just killed him too fast. There was no time to react. Way too got lassoed after he got Flame Break. And the Flame Break itself was just kind of like a panic because I think he was expecting to be able to get lassoed right away. Right. But it still ended up working because he wasn't in range to disrupt. So there was no saving basically to be had. And Dignitas' positioning for the fight was just not very good, because Liquid did a nice job of utilizing their smoke. So overall, well done by Liquid. They managed to get a tower out of it as well. And this game, too, it's been pretty much all Liquid so far.
Totally agree. And they're making it work for them. And I think it all comes down to, just to some bizarre choices. You give the Bat Rider free farm in the jungle. You know he's going to have a very quick... I mean, his blink was actually slower than it normally would be. You will literally see jungling Bat Riders have an 8 or 9 minute blink. Like, that is really not an exaggeration at all. So even with it coming out a little bit later than normal, they just weren't ready. The Lone Druid again. I mean, look where Owie is. The poor guy sitting at 38 last hits at 15 minutes into the game. He's got every bit of phase and one set of blades of attack. I mean, that's the entirety of his farm, more or less, and some GG branches plus some brown boots and an unused salve. So it's going to be a long time before we feel his influence at all. Fluff, in the meantime, he's already got a Bassy treads. He's already got up his urn. Take a look at TC. He's feeling very big. He's already picked up a Javelin. So, I mean... It's just Liquid. I don't know what Dignitas got out of their lane choices is, I think, the problem. And now we're going to have Mag actually skewering Bulba. And Bulba got a little brave and got to pay the price in a big way. TC comes on just basically to look at him and go, Bulba, what were you thinking, brother?
Little bit overzealous, I guess, positioning-wise. He had his team behind him, but they just weren't that close. When you get skewered away, it's pretty long distance, especially at max rank, and there was just no real follow-up to be had from Liquid. And Korok, he's going to be working his way towards the Orchid. Pretty standard build coming out of him. He maxes the Overload after 3 ranks into Vortex, of course. Very, very standard Storm all around. And TC is spotted out here all by himself in Dignitas jungle at the moment.
And they don't have any way to disable until Lion gets there. Yeah, they can do nothing. They just couldn't do anything. Skull Basher now the pickup on the Lifestealer. Figured that's what it was going to be. And, I mean, right now, Liquid just looks good. And not to say that Dignitas is out of this. They're not. They got plenty of tools at their disposal. They really do. Magnus, for example, can make the Druid, even under-farmed, feel a bit more high value. Same thing with the Gyrocopter. But weathering the storm, and if they were up against a team that didn't quite have the reach that Liquid did, I would feel a lot more. I would feel a lot better about it. Like they had a much better chance to do what they did in game number 2 the first time these teams met, which was show us one of the most impressive comebacks ever. But with Liquid having this much reach, diving towers and cracking the base is not going to be hard if and when they get there. And it looks like they realize it. They're just going to go smoke up and try to get some kind of an advantage.
I still kind of question the decision, though. I mean, they smoke, but they don't have any vision of the other side of the map. They can see that a couple of heroes of Liquid are top lane, but this is kind of not necessarily a panic smoke, but it's kind of a wishful thinking smoke. I would put it that way. And Seeking doesn't have his Blink Dagger yet. Like, he needs, like, 25 gold. Why not just try to wait it out? They could try to sneak a Roshan, I guess. And there's actually no vision. Oh, Korok just walking into the wrong side, but no reaction. No Hex. No, nothing. So he's able to get away what otherwise should have probably been a free kill. Liquid end up getting away scot-free.
That is I'm just going to say it, man. This is not the Dignitas squad we saw a few hours ago. That right there, the only reason you make that mistake on what should have been a free kill is bad communication. The only reason that happens is you're not sure who should pull the trigger first. Do you hex or do you disrupt? Because obviously you want to have them. You want to have everything because there may be a reaction. So you don't want to hex him then have way too disrupt. You know, a quarter second later or anything like that. And now the RP going to be spent. That's going to catch Korok and Bulba. The follow up. Hey, there's the communication and the beautiful finger of death. Korok's actually still alive somehow, and Bulba manages to get himself killed again. And yeah, like we said, haven't seen a whole lot of Bulba bat. Maybe there's a reason.
Well, getting picked off a few times doesn't necessarily reflect his skill on the hero per se, but it does kind of hurt because he is one of the primary initiators on the side of Liquid. So Dignitas still keeping themselves, at the very least, in the game. That's pretty important. And their late game is actually still very scary because Gyrocopter's damage output scales very well because Flat Cannon is 1,000 range and you can just hit multiple heroes simultaneously, and that's what makes his carry potential so good. And Aoi, at some point, he will have some items. I mean, the poor guy has just not had a very good game so far. He didn't die at all, which is pretty impressive given the circumstances he was playing in, but I still feel like it would have been a better idea for him to just sit in the woods. Like, he was actually getting nothing out of the lane. He gave away 2 bears to Liquid, which is an extra 200 gold. And they knew that the Batrider was going to be farming Liquid's jungle anyway. There was not going to be any pressure applied anywhere near that top lane. So I feel like that actually put them innately behind. Even if you don't farm the jungle fast, it's still better than farming nothing.
Orchid now complete on the Storm Spirit. This is where storms start to feel really dangerous. It's not out of scope. Hold on, we're going to have a lasso grabbing out the mag. Infest out from the Lifestealer. He cleans him up under cover of Rage. Here comes the re-engagement out of Universe. But look at Storm Spirit, able to bring him back with the Flame Break. And yeah, that was Sans Orchid too. They turned it around that impressively, Sans Orchid. And now the Silence on Fogged. Going to be the first usage of that Orchid, as it is complete on Korok. He's very low on mana, so he'll probably take this tier 1 and then back. But I mean, I'm pretty sure we wrote the script for this, Draskell. I mean, we talked so much about some of the choices we were questioning and what worried us about this lineup, and it's really just panning itself out exactly how we thought it would.
It's really difficult to play against a team that has the reach of Liquid's lineup. You have to play very cautious. When you have mass team fight, the best way to execute is obviously to fight 5-on-5. But the problem is, the laning phase didn't really go that well for Dignitas. I mean, they sacked their bottom lane, and usually when you think about that, you say sack it, it typically means the hero's not even there. But he was. He just wasn't getting anything, and Liquid effectively farming on pretty much every single hero that they had. They were double jungling, which is something that Dignitas have actually done in the past in this particular tournament, and they were able to just be much more effective with their early game movements. So, still Liquid's game to lose so far, but Fluff could be getting caught here.
Fluff going to be skewered back, and yeah, Nature's Attendance makes it hard to clean up I want to call her a fluff machine, actually, but it makes it hard to clean up an Enchantress. There we go. But not that hard, as they do manage to bring him down pretty quickly. 9-6. So Dignitas, and keep in mind, this is what Dignitas did in Game 2. They felt like they were falling hopelessly behind. It was about this gold lead, maybe a little less, at this stage of the game. Then they just stopped dying. Then their movement just tightened up. And then all of a sudden, 40 minutes later in an hour-long game, you have us just scratching our head going, how did Dignitas win this? And it was, I mean, this is almost how it looked. So not going to write them off. Liquid, though, in a very, very good position. And Roche going to be the target. Roche is down to about half, and it doesn't look like Liquid realizes it yet.
I think they have a pretty good idea, but Fluff isn't going to be here that quickly, but they will be able to catch Fogged.
And here we go. Caldown's going to be there. TC engages out. Korok forced to jump out. And there's the skewer. Manages to clean up the Rubik. Now they're chasing Korok back. TC with Rage on cooldown. It's got about 5 seconds. Batrider's there. He's got a lasso and a blink if he wants it. RP going to get them both. And now the skewer, Shockwave's going to be there. Cleans both of them up. Return kill from Korok. And here comes Fluff using impetus to do what damage he can. But Dignitas is closing that gap. And situations like that are 100% playing into the hands of Dignitas. That right there is how Dignitas wants to fight. What you don't want to do is show your face and then just go 1-on-1 or 2-on-2. If you're going to try and punish Dignitas, you have to commit, you have to use your lasso, you have to use your ball lightning and your orchid. Otherwise, that's going to happen to Liquid over and over again. And now Mag going to skewer back up to the high ground. And Korok, well, nope, not able to get the kill. Way two's there to bail him out. Uses a disruption. He blinks away to safety. This ward right here, a very clutch ward, by the way, on the side of Dignitas. 11-9, and they get the Aegis. Aegis goes to Universe.
I actually thought that Mag was going to die when he screwed up there because obviously there's an Orchid on Storm and the damage output from him is quite high, but they coordinated it well with the TP. They managed to get the disruption to end up saving him. And what ended up happening there is Liquid, they committed pretty heavily to a support that they can't commit to. Like, if you're going to commit to a support, ideally you would want to kill the Shadow Demon because he's really good at just stopping your initiation potential and negating the damage that you can deal. And they kind of took this weird drawn-out team fight. Fluff really wasn't there right away, so it was a 4-on-5. And they just kind of ended up losing a couple of heroes in Roshan. So that's pretty much all Dignitas needs to get back into the game. It wasn't like they were super far behind. Liquid were able to abuse their range pretty well for the last, I would say, 10, 15 minutes or so when the Storm finally hit 6 and they wanted to try to get on the map and force issues. But now, there's an Aegis on the side of Dignitas, which means the next fight isn't going to be nearly as troublesome, and Universe is also going to have a BKB most likely by the next time they choose to engage. And a lot of the damage that Liquid has right now is magic-based. You have Remnant, of course, and then you have the Impetus damage, which is completely negated by a BKB, and then you have Bat Riders. So it's going to be a bit harder for them to focus down Universe, and as the game goes on, his damage output is going to become much, much more important to Dignitas' success, because again, that Flag Cannon is just so unbelievably good as the game stretches on.
Korok and company, under cover of smoke, they drop themselves a ward. They're going to try to bait a reaction on Dignitas. Doesn't look like they want to take the bait, though. Don't think they're going to have the opportunity to trade. That's going to be what they're going to try to do. And Liquid, honestly, can just push straight through to the base and dare them to come back right now. Because TPing into a team with that much reach would actually be really tough to do effectively. And yeah, we see 2 back out. Yeah, they're just going to go straight for it. No way that they can out-push Liquid. And there's the Infest. Bulba showing his face way up front. Glyph goes off on both sides. They do take down the tier 2. Let's see how committed to this Liquid happens to be. Not very much. Looks like they're going to pull back. Korok's turned around. Yep, he is going to TP away.
It makes sense. And yeah, he's just going to go straight for Aoi. I was a little bit worried about this, that they might potentially be able to hit him, and they could still kill him here.
And there's the Vortex. TC's there, open wounds, the Orchid, and see you at the base. Very important kill, and poor Aoi. This has just been a very unfortunate game for him and his poor little bear. Fluff, though, might be in trouble. Nope, no stun. Homing missile. There's a reason why we call it arguably the worst stun in the game, and we just saw it.
Well, the one lesson that we can learn here is you don't want to be a straggler against a team with a Storm.
Yeah.
Because he will catch you. If you don't get out of line of sight at the very least and start to TP away, you're going to get caught. And that's pretty much exactly what we saw. So be a little bit more careful about how you want to disengage your push. If you're Dignitas, I don't know why Aoi stayed there in the first place. It's like really obvious that they could just so easily TP into the base out of vision of you and just go on you and kill you. So just overstaying his welcome a tiny bit, a death that he really couldn't afford to have. He is recovering, though, just at a slow pace. His net worth is finally starting to pick up a little bit, neck and neck with the rest of his teammates, but of course still a bit a ways behind the Laze Stealer and, of course, the Storm Spirit of Liquid. So, I mean, Dignitas aren't playing this horribly, but at the same time, they're not really getting a whole lot back. A lot of it is basically reliant upon their team fights, like how well they can do, their RPs, the call downs, the mass damage that they can actually get out. And taking fights is pretty much one of the only options I think Dignitas has left here.
And the tier 2 now going to be the target. Here we go. Bulba's going to go for it. He's going to be able to lasso out, but there's the Hex, the disruption as well. Here comes Storm. Korok looking for a target. BKB up on Universe. Call down, pounding on Fluff and diving all the way back. We're going to see Lion cleaned up. Korok, my goodness. Looking for some safety. Mike's going to be cleaned up by the Baron in the meantime. TC is there with Korok. Can they bring him down fast enough to keep Storm alive? The Ghost Scepter keeps Magnus out of harm's way, at least momentarily. Big win for Dignitas, and now TC gonna be forced to invest. They can't do anything to a full health creep, so they're not even gonna fall. Or no, they are. Let's see what they're gonna do. Are they just gonna go? Okay, I thought they were gonna follow the creep all the way down, and you saw them draw it out. I thought they were gonna try to hook up with the creep wave, but as is, instead, looks like the tier 1 mid might be the next target, and it will be as Universe goes to work.
Well, that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. That whole team fight, not initiating on the Shadow Demon, not initiating on the Lion, those are the heroes that add pretty much the only counter-engage outside of RP on the side of Dignitas. So if you don't get one of those heroes, the lasso is completely wasted. So Bulba, with a little bit of a not ideal engagement, at least in terms of what hero he decided to pick, he blinked in pretty much at max range and just got the first target that he could get, which ended up being the Lone Druid. Even if you get Aoi, Like, he's still tanky. He's got 2,000 HP. It's not like you can just burst him, even in an ideal situation. So that was a really needed team fight win for Dignitas, and how unfortunate that for the first time in one of all the games that we've seen today on a gyrocopter, we don't see a Helm of the Dominator, because he would have been able to dominate the creep and then send it back to base. So that's unfortunate that he didn't actually have one. It would have been QC. But Liquid, I mean, they're still okay. The Lifestealer has a tremendous amount of farm, didn't die in the last engagement. Now he's got a full Assault Cuirass as well. So TC continues to be pretty much a gigantic threat.
And Dignitas bringing it together, man. And I said it in Game 1, and I said it once here in Game 2. This has not felt like the Dignitas squad we're accustomed to seeing. And it didn't feel like the Dignitas squad we saw win their way through the winners bracket. And I honestly make it look easy. It's not like Dignitas got here by the skin of their teeth. They got to the grand finals by 2-0ing Fnatic and Liquid, and really lopsided about it as well. And coming in, I mean, they lost Game 1, and that's fine, but they were beginning to look really uncoordinated. Their communication was beginning to show to be a little lax, but all of a sudden, and again, this is how it looked in Game 2 of the first time these two teams met today in the winter bracket final. And it's got to be encouraging for them, and it's got to be a little worrisome for Liquid. I mean, look at the gold graph. Haven't checked it in a while. It's already been dropped down more than half. The experience is actually back in favor of Dignitas right now. And this could be, if they lose another fight, if Liquid loses another fight, this game could get away from them or have at least the potential to do so. Universe, with his BKB and his Shadowblade and 2,000 gold as well, so he's getting up there. We'll take a look at our net worth. Lifestealer's at the top, but Gyro and Druid catching back up. Now they're going to engage on the Owie. Owie caught out, looking to blow him up. RP going to buy him some time, and there's the follow-up. Korok's going to end up dropping. Lasso on a disrupted target does nothing. Universe going to be able to pull back. TC taking through this as best he can, but finally the rage wears off, and he is going to end up dead. Owie gets a mega kill as well as a double kill, and they're not done. Still looking for heads to add to the collection. Mike, Bulba, and Fluff up on the high ground. Way 2's there, spamming out the Shadow Poison. They did manage to bring down Gyro at the very, very least. So 15 as the dust settles. Now Mag re-engaging. Mike going to use telekinesis. Here comes the bear. And the Force Staff. Is it enough? Nope, there's a bash. The basher complete on the bear. First, an auto-attack bash. That is the most infuriating thing in the history of man.
It is so painful, man. Every single time that happens to me, or even the first hit root, that's like insulting. Almost
It really is.
It's like, come on, really? This first hit root, stuff like that. Yeah, it's definitely nice that Dignitas were able to defend that. And the more they do that, the more fights they win, the easier it's going to be for them to take the next fights, because sooner or later that Gyrocopter is going to get to a point where he's not going to just melt to the damage of the Lifestealer and, of course, the Storm. He's going to get tankier. He's going to start doing more damage and less shots, and that's going to make life very, very difficult, actually, for Liquid in terms of the supports being able to stay in the fights. Nobody on the side of Liquid right now has anything like a Ghost Scepter. Sure, Fluff is kind of tanky, but Korok really isn't that tanky. Only 1,000 HP. He basically died in the reverse polarity when they tried to engage, but seems like he wants to engage here, too.
Korok taking some damage, but a lot of folks from Dignitas making their way into the jungle. In the meantime, Fluff has made his way back to farming. He's going to have his scepter basically right now. Just needs to pick up a Blade of Alacrity, and it's done. 25 gold away from that. The Assault Cuirass on TC. I mean, right now, and we talked about just how good Liquid's lineup was going to be with its reach, with its ability to single-target initiate. But they have to do it the right way, and we're beginning to see just how vulnerable that Lifestealer is when he doesn't have the right way of starting the fight behind him. He's been riding in on Korok for the most part. And even then, spells like RP, just shutting them down before they can even get started.
It's very difficult, actually, for Liquid to play this style when you're trying to fight outside of the base of Dignitas, because it's very difficult to get vision properly. Like, the fact that they have the wards that they do have is pretty astonishing, especially considering there's a sentry sitting right next to one of Liquid's wards up on the hill, near where the top tier 2 used to be. But Dignitas really only have to do two things. Make sure that your supports are in the proper position, and whenever Liquid engage, you just disrupt that target, or you just counter-engage with the Mag RP. So it's a bit easier, in my opinion, to execute what Dignitas has than it is Liquid's lineup. They have a lot of isolation heroes, a lot of things that you have to have kind of everything go right for you, and credit to Liquid for playing it as well as they have up until this point. But those are the kind of lineups that if you lose, like a couple of fights, the momentum fades very, very quickly from you.
Yeah, we can already see that. I mean, right now, the gold is still in favor of Liquid, but it's very, very, very not big. I mean, you're talking 3,500 at most. The experience well in the favor of Dignitas. And Dignitas sensing just how far ahead they are. They've got the Roche timing down. They're ready to smoke their way in. There's no vision here from Liquid. And we'll see if they're able to sense this out. Now, this is a situation with everyone grouped up in the Roche pit. If they were able to react, they would be able to abuse very, very heavily. But yeah, they're not going to be able to. And with Mag on the outside keeping watch, he can always hit the reset button if he absolutely has to. But he's not going to have to. Liquid's going to be tardy to the party. They drop a sentry ward, and here in a second, they're going to get the alert and go, oh crap, that's another Aegis gone, and they can't even try to fight now.
That does hurt, especially because the one person who absolutely has to be there is Korok. Like, he has to be there to Orchid, especially the Mag or the Shadow Demon, if they want to choose to not engage in those particular heroes. It's nice to have another disable to just prevent Way 2 from disrupting whatever target you go on or what have you. So the fact that he's not there is just a no-go. Simply can't go in. Liquid giving away Roshan at this stage in the game, it's starting to get to that point where you lose a fight and it becomes much more of an impact. It's not like a 10-minute fight or a 15-minute fight where it's like, okay, we might lose a tower, but it's going to be fine. These are the fights that you lose a lot for,
right.
Especially when you're playing up against a lone druid who now is starting to get a decent chunk of damage on his bear. The bear hits for over 200 right now. He's got the armlet, he has the demon edge and the armlet, the basher, and the armlet. So it's dangerous. You don't really want to take it that late, and because the bear is empowered too, he hits really, really freaking hard. And these are the games, especially the last time these two teams met today, where you could lose one fight, and then you're suddenly missing half your base.
Yep. And speaking of missing towers, this bear just mauling this down by a demolish. Here comes Korok. He's got a passenger. Bulba's going to be spotted out. As Korok, never mind. Bulba's going to be spotting out Way 2, He's going to be making his way over with Korok. And doesn't look like he's actually going to find another target. Thought for sure Bulba had spotted out Way 2. Way 2 got a little too far. And with the Force Staff and the Blink Dagger, there's no reason Bulba shouldn't be able to pursue basically across the freaking map. If he gets vision of you, you should be caught. And thought for sure he'd go, but it apparently didn't get a look. The Tier 2 does end up dropping. Only one outer tier tower remaining for Liquid. Still one more than Dignitas happens to have. But if we look at 35 minutes, that gold again continuing to dip down, and it has leveled out experience, but very close game. And I'm just impressed with Dignitas' resiliency. And this is coming back again around to what we said was one of their best features as a team. It's just how well they communicate and move most of the time.
Well, their ability to play from behind is admirable. Like the fact that 2 times today, they've played in a situation where a team has been leading them for more than 20 minutes at a time.
Right.
That's impressive to be able to keep the game going as long as they have. And in this game, a lot of it could be attributed to their lineup. It's pretty easy to execute in terms of 5-on-5 fights. Like I said, the supports have a pretty simple job, and you have 2 heroes with ultimates that are pretty important to land well, but call down, let's be honest, not that hard to land. It's huge. And RP is probably one of the harder things to actually place. But as long as you get somebody like TC or Korok for the most part, that's fine. As long as the RP doesn't get stolen, which of course is something else that you have to worry about. But all in all, Dignitas' ease of execution in their lineup is much, much better than Liquid. And especially because they had an Aegis, that's the whole reason why they didn't want to chase. Like, why take the opportunity to give Universe a chance to just clean everybody up? If you use everything to get in, if you force and blink, then how are you expecting to be able to get away with your lasso?
Right.
So it was like an awkward situation, to say the least, for them.
Liquid continuing to kind of probe across the map. We can see the vision very solid right now out of Dignitas. They've got 3 solid wards down on the river, and they hear Korok dancing around. He's got his own BKB. Now, BKB, a very important item on a Storm Spirit as well, and I kind of was in the process of saying this and got distracted again. But it's the Orchid is what makes Storm Spirit feel like a Storm Spirit. But once he gets a BKB, that's when you have to be real careful, because that's when a Storm Spirit could just face roll you if your positioning is not good. If you start trying to counter-initiate into a Storm that has a BKB, you're just not going to kill him. You're going to end up wasting everything, and before you know it, his team's going to be on top of you. And we can see Dignitas again playing very, very patient Dota right now. They're sticking together, not being baited out, not taking any real risks, and as a result, that gold graph getting closer and closer to 0. The experience as well in their favor. Top on the board in terms of farm, still TC, but I'm really impressed with the way I always battled back. He was having a terrible game, and because of him and his own team's willingness to stay patient and just take what they were given. Look at his inventory now. The bear with a MKB, Basher, Armlet, and Phase.
A very impressive comeback, to say the least. And the funny part is, he had that 1 death, and now he's 7-1.
Yep.
So he has gotten pretty darn lucky in terms of being able to get those kills. And just look at how fast that tower died.
Yep.
The bear hits for over 330 damage right now. Here the infest going to Korok, and here we go.
This time they get way 2. That's the one they had to have. Bulba's going to be their RP, though. Going to lock him back down. 2 put down, and Mike walks right into the call down. Damage being done from Fluff. But with Mike using the RP, which he had stolen, turning this fight around, we're going to see the Aegis popped. That might have saved the game for Liquid. That, seriously, Mike stealing that RP might have saved the game for Liquid. Dignitas looking like they were... I just saw Mike walk in, didn't even realize he had stolen RP. Just walked into the call down, got it off, and this little Rubik in the hood wearing his gangsta hoodie, may literally have just saved this game for Liquid with that play.
Such a nice steal right there from IX Mike. And the funny part about it was he just casually waddled in. He sees the call down. There's like rockets flying down, bears clawing his teammates to death. And he's like, yeah, I just have an RP. I'm going to hit 4 people. It's fine. And yeah, that definitely turned that fight around completely, because up until that point, even if they pick way 2, getting the RP on those particular heroes, they managed to kill Korok straight away, but Liquid come down here middle lane right now. They actually don't have buyback on Universe, so they're either going to be forced to glyph here at the very least, yep, there it is, or they're going to have to sack the tower. But I don't know if they're going to necessarily be able to crack the racks, but being able to stop that Aegis push is a huge deal for Liquid.
Absolutely. 5 seconds on the Druid, 10 on the Gyro. This tower should end up dropping. And is it going to be denied? Way too, looked like he was thinking about it. Yeah, there it is. So they do get the tower at the very least denied by Way Too Sexy. But yeah, the way you summed it up, that's exactly what I saw. Like, I even called that out as Mike just walks into the call down. I had no idea he had reverse polarity. And even after he dropped it, it took me a second to register what had just taken place. But a gigantic turnaround. And Liquid, after maybe feeling this game slip away from them a little bit, all of a sudden, they're back ahead, albeit slightly, in terms of experience, in the gold, turning northwards once again. Now, willing to press that advantage. We have the smoke from Liquid, Korok with the passenger. He's got TC inside of him. The rest of the team trailing behind him. If they can get Owie, this would be huge. Oh, they're going to go for it. He thought about it, thought better of it. And he's actually under cover of an invis rune, not just smoke, so he's able to play a little bit farther forward.
If they had caught anyone right there, it could be a very, very quick GG, because the glyph's down, and Liquid realize this. They know that they still have 3 or actually closer to 4 minutes left before they're going to be able to use that. So if they take one good fight this close to their opposition, it's an easy racks, even if they lose a couple of people in the process, because basically nobody has buyback at all on either team except for Fluff. So this fight has huge emphasis and implications on it for both teams. And Dignitas realizes too, they're like, yeah, we don't have a glyph. We can't really leave the base. Right. They haven't seen anyone on the map, and that bottom lane is pushing very, very heavily. So they're either going to have to choose to go for it, or they're going to have to abandon ship completely, which hurts Liquid a bit, because I feel like this window of opportunity is not going to present itself that many more times in this game. And you can't expect the Rubik to get 4-man RPs more than once.
Yeah, I think Mike did his job. And I agree with you, but the thing is, and I talked about this a bit earlier in the game, this is where I feel like Liquid's lineup can excel. They have heroes with a lot of reach, so if they're able to catch anyone just a few steps too far forward in front of these racks, like right there where Magnus is, if they are willing to pull the trigger, if they're willing to take the chance and go for it, that could be enough. They have the BKB on the Storm Spirit, so he can play a little bit more aggressive than even a Storm Spirit normally would at this stage of the game. Bad Rider has a 4-staff and a Ghost Scepter, so he can take a chance. And it looks like they're thinking about it. Firefly activated on Bulba. And they're going to go ahead and push it at the very least. Try to use creeps. Yeah, we see one dominated creeper, one enchanted creep. Taking a look, they're all very far back. And if they can at least get up on the steps, it would be a big step. And no, they're going to pull back. Roche is going to be back up pretty soon, making about 145. And I guess that's going to be when Liquid's going to look to capitalize.
Well, this does hurt Liquid. I mean, they did kind of just sit there for a while, not really get anything accomplished. Dignitas, they don't mind necessarily stretching the game out that long. TC has obnoxious amounts of farm, as per usual. He's getting an Abyssal Blade and leading the last hits and pretty much leading overall net worth. Oh, nice X on a Korok.
RP right into the call down. He's going to skewer him back into them, and that's going to clean both of them up. Universe is traded away as TC does manage to burst him down. Now, the lasso grabbing the disrupted target that was the Magnus. Magnus already shot his wad, though, getting off the RP. TC is just a monster, but he's going to be rooted down before he can clean up Mag. Bulba and TC still standing and fighting. Fluff somewhere on the periphery. TC gonna be forced to infest the 4-staff. Enough to get Bulba and his passenger to safety, but not quite. As Way 2 able to catch up and get the disruption off. Fluff now laying into Way 2 with impetus. He may get the kill. One charges might be enough now. TC back out and swinging, fighting for his life. Fluff laying into Fog. Fog going to be forced to run away. Ghost Scepter buys him a bit of time. Both teams lose 3 in a fight that started farther up the lane and just chased itself all the way back down to the river. 42 minutes in, and we are dead even, Rascal. 22-22. The gold is less than 2,000 in favor of one team. The experience less than 2,000 as well. Feels like our last series, and we remember how spectacular that got right about now.
I gotta say, this game has been pretty much everything that I wanted it to be and more. The one thing right now that Dignitas really has to worry about is this is a free Roshan right now for Liquid. You can see Korok just falls all the way across the map, has regeneration rune, so they're gonna have an Aegis, the next team fight they want to take, and they might actually get a free bear in the process, which would be a pretty big deal. Nope, gonna be able to get recalled to its master. So the Aegis, now Liquid have another opportunity. The Glyph is going to be up by the time they push, but that's not going to matter necessarily because the Aegis is going to give them so much of an advantage in the next battle that even if there's a Glyph that they're pushing into, the fight that they win should be a big enough advantage for them to push regardless of whether or not they have it.
22-22. 44 kills on the board. 44 minutes into this game. A lot of even numbers. And again, you look at the gold, you look at the experience. You cannot ask for a closer game at 44 minutes in. Taking a look at TC, the guy is monstrous. He has his Abyssal, his Armlet, his Assault Cuirass, and, yep, Satanic. Going to be his next choice, and he also has Cheese. So that's going to be very difficult to bring down Lifestealer forever. And the thing that they can do, which has become a little bit more popularized now on a hero like a Lifestealer, is they can start to feel a little bit more comfortable now. If they really want to, they can feel comfortable waiting out even another Roshan, letting this Aegis drop, and then looking to take the Roshan fight because the Cheese, of course, does not go away. They'll have it ready to roll and possibly looking to double up. And Korok going to go ahead and take on his passenger once again, but really interested to see how both teams want to end up playing this out.
Dignitas can't really play aggressive right now. They just simply can't afford to. If they lose a fight, even if it's outside of Liquid space, at this point, it's 45 minutes in. People have very long resurrection timers, and nobody on the side of Dignitas have a buyback. Or actually, excuse me, the Gyrocopter does, but nobody else does. And then you have a Storm and a Lifestealer on the side of Liquid who both can buy back. Oh, and by the way, Storm has an Aegis. He has 3 lives. Now, he's not going to necessarily be able to help after he dies the second time, if it ends up coming down to that, and Liquid end up pushing into Dignitas space, but it's still a deterrent. It makes Dignitas not want to try to leave and do anything risky. Now, on the flip side, if they do want to try something, they're going to probably have to smoke, but right now it just looks like they want to try to 5-man farm a lane because the Universe still does desperately need more items than he has right now.
And Bulba leading the way with Firefly. Liquid looking to play aggressive, doing some counter warding. That gem on Bulba with his Ghost Scepter. And Dignitas going to be forced back, but this honestly looks exactly like Game 2 of their earlier series. Liquid having map control, forcing Dignitas back into the base. Naked Rax even to that point. If you remember, that was the situation then too. And I'm just... Liquid, I think, can actually play this really patient if they really want to. And by patient, I mean they could just say, you know what, we're not going to try to win for 60 seconds or until 60 minutes. We're just going to take the map away from Dignitas, wait for another Roche fight, take that fight with a cheese, and try to get 2 cheeses if it's not contested. Or if it is, we'll have the cheese to rely on, and then we'll be at least at the midway point on the map, and we can charge out and take a Rax off of that. And just deny Dignitas farm in the meantime. But doesn't look like that's going to be the choice. They're showing their face very much. There we go. We're going to have the mag brought out. Call downs there. RP is interrupted. He didn't get it off that time. Here we go. Korok catches out way too sexy. 2 targets down. The 2 they had to have the most. Now he's going to engage on the Fog. Fog making a run with the Ghost Scepter. Owie forced back off of the Rax. They got the 2 they had to have. No buyback. No way they can defend with those 2 down. And Korok is actually going to re-engage. And re-engage just right onto the tower, basically. Thought they were chasing a hero. Looks like that wasn't even the point. Bringing down the barracks, now rotating to the bottom set of racks. The Bear's going to be telekinesed and now open wounds by TC. TC does not have his Satanic, but he doesn't need it, at least not this time around. He has his cheese to get himself back up if he really is worrisome. I don't think it matters. If I had to guess, Dignitas talking it over and probably about to give us those 2 letters.
I would expect the same, pretty much. I mean, they haven't even used a glyph. They just know. They're like, yeah, even if we glyph, it's not really going to matter because we lost all the high priority targets. They still have one rack standing, though, so maybe they want to try to have their last-ditch effort right here.
And there's another Laster coming out of Bulba. Calldown's going to be there, but Fog cleaned up. Korok's going to have his Aegis pop. TC moves in and just wailing on Universe. Universe Shadow Blades away. He's going to almost die to Flame Break. Korok now re-engages off the respawn. Waitsu going to be the target. He's orchided as well. Down he goes with the help of Fluff, chucking those javelins from downtown. And our final set of racks drops. That's going to be Megas. And there you go. GG, well played. Liquid, who came into this series out of the loser's bracket, meaning they were trailing a game right from the beginning, all of a sudden finds themselves one win away from claiming the D2L Season 2 championships and walking away with our $5,000 grand prize. Another great game out of these two teams, Draskell, but at this point, why would you expect anything else?
I'm really impressed with Liquid's comeback so far. I mean, I say a comeback. They did come into the series one down, and of course they lost to Dignitas earlier today. But just these two teams, especially watching them go back and forth the way that they have, the fact that Dignitas were able to last as long as they did against Liquid's almost consistent pressure for most of the game. Both teams played this very, very well. Now I got to give all the props in the world to Liquid because I even said it earlier. Their lineup is actually harder to execute than what Dignitas has because you have things to fall back on, like basically a double carry lineup with Empower, with RP, Call Down, and some AoE abilities as well. So it's a very, very easy lineup to execute, but Liquid just all over the map the entire game. They managed to get map control very, very early, force Dignitas in defensive posturing, and kind of just won because of a couple of really, really nice decisions in team fights. Dignitas came back in a pretty big way, and at some point I would even said Dignitas might have actually been able to win. But Liquid, with some nice movement, team fight, managed to secure a Roshan, especially with TC going the item build that he did. If he didn't have that Helm of the Dominator, it would have been way harder to actually take Roshan at that stage. So, all in all, very, very well played by Liquid, and like you said, one more to go.
28-22, the final kill score in a